Welcome back to The Explainer. Okay, today we are stepping way back in time, straight into the opulent royal court of Emperor Akbar, and we're going to unravel a seriously fascinating historical fable. Now, this isn't just some dusty old story about ancient royalty, right? It's actually this incredible, timeless masterclass on intellect, on ego, and, well, the absolutely hilarious lengths human desperation will drive us to. We're going to break down this imperial riddle that literally stumped the sharpest minds of an entire empire. And as you'll see, it perfectly illustrates how arrogance creates these massive blind spots. So let's dive right in.
So I want you to think about a question for a second. Tell me, what is the biggest thing in this world? Seriously, think about it. Is it a mountain, the ocean, maybe the universe itself? Well, this is the exact, seemingly impossible riddle that Emperor Akbar just casually dropped on his royal court. But to truly wrap our heads around the weight of this question and the brilliant psychological trap it actually was, we first have to look at the brewing workplace drama that forced the emperor to ask it in the first place.
Okay, let's dive into this dynamic because it's basically the ultimate toxic workplace scenario. On one side of the court, we have Birbal. Now, Birbal is the emperor's absolute favorite. He's trusted, he's patient, and he's exceptionally witty. In fact, the emperor literally refuses to start his daily proceedings without him. But on the other side, you've got a room packed with deeply jealous, cunning, and arrogant ministers. I mean, think of them as the worst kind of middle management you can imagine. They are absolutely sick of waiting for Birbal every single day. So one morning they completely snap. They demand priority, they tell the emperor, we're smarter, we're more dependable, and they essentially demand an immediate promotion over Birbal. Well, the emperor sees right through this boiling jealousy, so he decides to call their bluff with a high-stakes challenge.
And guys, the stakes of this challenge were absolutely enormous. The emperor tells these jealous ministers, "Fine, I'll give you one question. If you can answer it, I will never wait for Birbal again. You win. But if you fail to answer what the biggest thing in the world is by sunset today, you are all facing a 3-month suspension. And that's 3 months completely without pay. No reimbursement, no nothing. So suddenly, this arrogant power play turns into a terrifying gamble with their actual livelihoods on the line.
It's amazing to watch how the panic just totally builds throughout their day. In the morning, they are fueled by pure ego, right? They confidently accept the challenge. Yes, sir, ask the question and we will instantly answer it. But then, midday rolls around and reality kind of sets in. They end up wasting hours in these incessant, pointless arguments. One guy suggests the world, another argues back, just huge egos clashing, while the clock is constantly ticking down. Finally, as sunset starts creeping up, sheer panic completely overrides their pride. One extremely tired minister finally points out the harsh truth. The only way to save their jobs and, feed their families is to swallow their pride and go beg the very man they were trying to replace, Birbal.
Which brings us to this incredibly chaotic scene. Just try to picture this. A mob of these previously stuck-up, arrogant ministers practically sprinting all the way to Birbal's house. And the second they arrive, they are so frantic they just start loudly talking over each other, desperately begging him for the solution. It gets so bad that Birbal actually has to tell them to calm down and speak one at a time because they literally sound like their lives are in danger. The humiliation is just complete. The men who spent the morning claiming they were vastly superior are now literally on his doorstep, entirely dependent on his intellect.
But what's genuinely brilliant here is Birbal's calculated response. Once they finally manage to explain the emperor's impossible question, Birbal just laughs and says, "Whatever this question is, I don't have an answer right now. Give me time till tomorrow evening." It is just absolute genius-level manipulation. See, he knows full well their deadline is today, right at sunset. He knows their salaries are hanging by a thread. By threatening to delay, he triggers pure, unadulterated desperation. He basically forces them to hand over a blank check, leaving them screaming that they are ready to do absolutely whatever he says just to save them.
And this brilliantly illustrates his next move, because he doesn't just hand them the answer, oh no. He sets up a physical demonstration made up of 4 deeply humiliating steps. Step 1. He sits in a chariot and tells 4 of the ministers to physically pick it up and carry him. Step 2. Another minister has to hold his shawl. Step 3. Another one holds his slippers. And Step 4. One minister is ordered to literally shower him with flowers as they walk. Remember, these are the exact same men who, just hours earlier, told the emperor they were Birbal's superiors. And now, without even a moment of hesitation, they agree to act as his personal, literal footmen. You really have to visualize the completely bizarre spectacle of this grand entrance. The sun is setting. The emperor is sitting there waiting in the court.
And suddenly, through the heavy wooden doors, come the very men who plotted Birbal's downfall. They're sweating, they're straining, and they are literally carrying their bitter rival into the royal court on a chariot. They're holding his shoes, they're tossing flowers at him. It is the ultimate reversal of fortune playing out in real time right in front of the emperor's completely bewildered eyes.
So the emperor, who is just utterly confused to this point, asks Birbal what on earth is going on. He's like, a chariot certainly isn't the biggest thing in the world. And that is when Birbal drops the answer to the impossible riddle. He says, need is the biggest thing. That is infinite. And suddenly it clicks. The entire humiliating procession the emperor just witnessed wasn't just some elaborate prank. It was the literal, living answer to his puzzle, being acted out in real time by the jealous ministers themselves.
The absolutely crucial point here is how Birbal defines this concept for all of us. One of the cunning ministers tries to argue back, saying, well, you can't measure need. And Birbal totally agrees. He says that is exactly why it's the biggest. Need, or want, is this infinite force tied to our human character. You can't measure it with a ruler, you can't put it on a scale, but its power is absolute. It can make anyone, no matter how arrogant they are, feel incredibly small and force them to swallow their pride. As Birbal pointed out straight to the ministers' faces, you hated me till yesterday. Today, because you needed me, you picked me up on your very shoulders. The invisible force of need moved grown, arrogant men to do the unthinkable. So, what does this all mean for us? Let's quickly summarize the core takeaways from this whole royal debacle, because these lessons apply just as much to our modern lives and our own workplace dynamics today. First, never be jealous of another person's capability. Trying to tear someone else down usually just backfires spectacularly. Second, arrogance creates massive blind spots. I mean, their ego completely convinced them they could solve an impossible riddle, and it almost cost them their jobs. And finally, the most powerful takeaway of all, you never really know how, when, or why you might need someone. Treating people poorly today might literally mean you have to carry their chariot tomorrow.
Which brings us to a question I really want to leave you with. Who might you need tomorrow that you are underestimating today? It is such a timeless lesson. The infinite power of need humbles every single one of us eventually. So take a look around your own life, acknowledge the unique capabilities of those around you, and just make sure you aren't letting your own ego write checks your abilities can't cash. Thanks so much for joining me for this explainer. I really hope it gave you something incredibly big to think about.